Other spectacles. Oh yes. That's the subtitle. The title of the book is Feather Shows, and here's a copy right here. Did the writers get one? Yeah, very good. And they're for sale in the lobby. Normally they run it for $16 each, but Anthony said $10 a pop. It's a great deal.
Yeah.
And you know what's extra very special? We're going to sign them for you.
Woo!
Which will make them worth a lot. But I'm so thrilled to be here tonight because I take this role as editor of the Las Vegas Right series very seriously. I feel a heavy responsibility to seek out and basically corral the best writers in town and get them to strut their stuff here in the book, but also in this library every year, and at the Las Vegas Book Festival, which I hope you've marked your calendar. It's October 21st, it's Saturday, all day long at the historic 5th Street School. It's free, and there's so many cool things to do. The schedule just looks completely amazing. It's got some incredible authors lined up. All those best-selling authors that you can find at Barnes & Noble Writers Block. It's an amazing gathering of scribes. But before Saturday, we've got you here now, and we're going to blow your mind with these. I guess you might call them odes to the visual nature of Las Vegas. I'm very excited. I'm also excited to say that we've got some graphic narratives included. I don't know how those are going to fare. I should have probably included a slideshow that offered them up there on the screen behind me. But yeah, Gene Munson and Tiffany Pereira are going to talk about their works, their graphic works. Thank you so much for doing those comics. It's going to be fun. Okay, so we'll start off with my neighbor, Heather Lane Casera. Heather is a incredible poet, but I got her to write a little essay, a little piece of creative nonfiction, a memoir that I gave her one prompt, and that was Top Gun, the movie. And of course, she broke my heart with it.
Well, I'm a little bit grateful that I get to read first, because then I can, sit and listen calmly to everyone else who's going to be amazing this evening. Thank you, Jarret, and thanks to everyone with Nevada Humanities and Huntington Press. So grateful to be here and to be in this book. So I think I'm going to start just a couple paragraphs in. Rarely, I ride on the back of my father's Harley Davidson. I love the smell of gasoline, the enormous hum of the engine, syncopated in its vibrations. Something about it sounds broken, and this comforts me, reminds me of love. In my helmet, I sing while my father drives. Someday, I will be sad that I cannot remember what I say. Someday, I will hope that it was Kenny Loggins' Danger Zone or Cheap Trick's Mighty Wings, but it probably wasn't. In high school, to impress a boy, I will learn how to play exactly one song on the trumpet. Harold Faltermeyer's Top Gun anthem. Someday, to impress myself, I learned to ride my own motorcycle, which my father will hate. I will make a playlist with the Top Gun soundtrack to play on repeat as I slice through the air, albeit on the pavement and through the mountains of the Mojave Desert. I also learned how to fly an airplane, earned my private pilot's license with, in part, inheritance left to me by a great uncle. Like many, he comments on my weight, on my hair. Like my mother, I tell myself that he means well. He is lonely. Before he dies, he asks me to join the Navy. I do not. I think flying a plane will be like riding a motorcycle. It is not. I hope it will make me feel like Tom Cruise. There is only one photo of me flying. I am seated in a Cessna 152, a two-seater, single-engine, fixed-wing aircraft. No matter the instructor with whom I fly, fuel never needs to be removed from the tank. I'm not heavy enough for weights and balances concerns. I do not understand the gravity of my tender-hearted body. During training, my first instructor touches my hand to adjust the throttle. I think to be concerned, but it is one of my earlier lessons, and I know there is so much that I do not yet know. Attitude controls airspeed and power, rate of descent. I already like to fly, even if it is mostly the idea of flying. A week later, my instructor tells me that his wife, who has the same first name as me, is not comfortable with him being my instructor. My new instructor yells when I make mistakes. I feel panic. She feels disappointment. The good progress that I have made falls apart. I start over, switching instructors again. Testing me, my third instructor kicks his door open mid-flight. The outside air ferociously inhales my chart, as if hungry to know to where we are going. That night, I will imagine my chart as a paper airplane version of Pete Maverick Mitchell's F-14. Hit the brakes, avoid danger, allow fellow aviators to pass you by. My sister dies in her mid-30s. Her ablation fails. She knows that it has failed. She asks the doctor for her heart meds back, for what she took daily before her surgery. She begs for the medication, the one that I will be on someday, and probably forever. More than one doctor refuses. Her concerns are charted, but it doesn't matter. She is found beneath her desk at work, remains unresponsive. I watch my comfort movie, Top Gun. Again, Goose dies like always. He is lost in an uncontrollable flat spin, the cause an engineering defect well known by its maker. Thanks for listening, folks.
Heather Lankasera is a professor at Nevada State University, and she's got a beautiful collection of poetry out called Gathering Broken Light. And I urge you to grab it when you see it, order it when you can. Okay, so Mike Weatherford, longtime entertainment reporter here in Las Vegas. As soon as I got to town, I found his book, Cult Vegas, in one of the bookstores, and immediately I was like, I have to know this guy. I have to learn about him. So I started reading his columns there in the newspaper, and yeah, I've just always been impressed with him. I ran into him last year at a comics convention. I think it was here. It was a year ago. Yeah, here. And we were just talking about our, obsessions, and then he mentioned Kolchak the Night Stalker. And I was like, I gotta get this guy to write about Kolchak the Night Stalker. I got Heather writing about Top Gun. I got Mike writing about a cool TV show. And of course he pulled out an incredible essay, an essay that sheds light on a forgotten scribe and a largely now obscure icon of pop culture. Mike, do you want to read a little bit from your essay notes on Kolchak the Night Stalker?
Yeah, the sucker's long, so I'll read the intro section and then kind of skip mercifully to the end. So, but yeah, right, time for Halloween. Jeff Rice should have been my role model. Instead, he was, I don't know really what, an invisible hand guiding me to Las Vegas. Don't feel like you should recognize his name. Maybe a few Las Vegas old-timers actually remember Rice or his family, but he's mainly known to the small but devout cult following for Carl Kolchak, the fictional reporter embodied by Darren McGavin in the classic TV thriller The Night Stalker. Rice, a one-time Las Vegas Sun reporter, created the character that rocked my sixth grade world, and I wasn't alone. On January 11th, 1972, the thriller about a gumshoe reporter tracking down a Las Vegas vampire became one of the most watched made-for-TV movies of its day. The ABC movie was viewed by more than half the people watching TV that night. Now, Woodward and Bernstein get most of the credit for journalism schools being flooded with new students in the 70s. I never contradicted anyone who assumed they were why I joined that wave as well. But truth be told, the allure of a reporter's life was way more rooted in Kolchak cruising around Vegas and bantering with his boss, Tony Vincenzo. I never met Rice. His days at the Sun and his early career peak with the Night Stalker all happened before I was out of junior high. He lived in California for a good chunk of my Las Vegas years. It was only a Review Journal column about his death in 2015 which revealed that he had been back in town for at least 10 years, and our paths might have crossed. But that same column by my colleague John L. Smith said Rice died in diminished circumstances, battling mental health issues. Small wonder that no one seemed to know him in the local showbiz circles, or even at the comic book shops where Kolchak's literary life continued. For a while, Rice's trajectory followed what most newspaper reporters of my era would say was their dream. We pay our dues in daily journalism, hone our writing skills, and collect material before writing that big novel, screenplay, or nonfiction bestseller that busts us out of the shabby newsroom and into a taste of the good life. Ironically, the few who didn't dream this were the dying breed of hard news lifers like Kolchak himself. And Rice got close until he got screwed. He grew up in a well-off family, the son of a costume jewelry dealer connected to the ownership of the Dunes. He was named Outstanding Young Journalist by the Nevada Press Association, and his son bylines included Elvis and Priscilla's 1967 wedding at the Aladdin. Before he was even 30, he was shopping a Las Vegas vampire novel called The Kolchak Papers. But nobody read the book before they saw the movie. They couldn't have, because the screen rights were separated from the literary rights and sold before the novel saw print. The movie's opening credits bear an unusual citation from an unpublished story by Jeff Rice. His book only came out as a paperback original after the movie's success. But, like Kolchak, Rice rankled the powers that be. When the Night Stalker headed to weekly TV, he fought for a piece of the pie and was shut out beyond a created by screen credit on the series that continued Kolchak's adventures for a single season. All the way up to that point, everything looked good for Jeff, says Mark Nowitzkiak, the veteran author and TV critic who wrote The Night Stalker Companion and eventually served as Rice's go-between in publishing and licensing deals. He had every reason to think he was going to have a successful dual career, writing novels on one hand and being involved in some way with Hollywood. All of that went kablooey with the series. He did the unthinkable and probably the ill-advised thing, which was to threaten to take two major Hollywood entities to court. Career suicide. But the novel and planned movie, but Kolchak lives on. His influence echoes down the line from Jaws to the X-Files and a whole genre of thriller now labeled urban paranormal. Closer to home, The Night Stalker was a perfect storm for three fascinations in my young life: vampires, newspapers, and Las Vegas. So now I'll skip to the end here. Most of Len Peterson's friends know him from the Page After Page comic book store he ran on East Charleston Avenue. But when the movie was filming in August 1971, Peterson was in his youth doing odd jobs in construction at Binion's Horseshoe. That's why he was at Binion's coffee shop counter about 5 a.m. one morning. He was reading comic books while waiting on his order, which led to a conversation with the guy sitting next to him, Jeff Rice. It was just luck. We just happened to be sitting next to each other at that ungodly hour of the morning, Peterson says. He may have recognized Rice's name from his newspaper bylines, but it didn't really matter. People would talk back and forth at that counter. Rice was having breakfast because he was helping out as much as he could with the location filming. He ended up inviting Peterson to a nearby construction area to watch the filming of the scene where one of the victims is found lying in a patch of desert near an overpass. I have to think that if I hadn't been 12 years old and 1,222 miles away, I would have met Jeff Rice too. Perhaps at some bar or coffee shop in Las Vegas, maybe even on a story we both covered. Maybe he read some of my review journal entertainment writing once he got back to town. Maybe not. Either way, it sure feels like I know it.
And again, Mike Weatherford's book is called Cult Vegas. Highly recommended. He's also got a comic book series, Drive-In Kings of 1977. That sounds really cool. I might have to ask you about that.
Yeah, Gene and Coy get them printed up for me in time. I'll have them at the comic book festival.
Excellent.
Thanks for the shout out.
We'll buy some copies of that on Saturday. Awesome. That's great. Okay, so I from time to time I email my friend Sue Kim in UNLV University Libraries. I emailed her one day, and I'm not even sure what sparked it, but I said, "Has there ever been a really good memoir written by a Las Vegas showgirl?" I forgot how the conversation went, but she said she mentioned this person, Nancy Wright Hardy, and that she had been a performer on the Strip for 4 decades. And I said, "My goodness, that person must have a lot of stories." So I immediately reached out to Nancy, and she provided me what's I'm 100% confident, I'm totally sure will be the first chapter of a memoir. She's going to read a bit of Showgirl, A Life in Lashes.
I'm glad you're confident. So this book begins in July 1977, For Whom the Bluebell Tolls. What saved me was the ad in the San Francisco Chronicle, smack in the middle of the arts and entertainment section. The Stardust Hotel Casino in Las Vegas was recruiting dancers for a show, Lido de Paris. Inside my ballet bubble, I'd never heard of the world-famous production. I only knew I really needed a job. Still stinging from being kicked off my scholarship at ballet school, friends consoled me with nonsense like, ballet companies hardly ever hire tall girls. In truth, I probably wasn't cream of the crop ballerina material anyway, but since childhood, that's all I'd ever wanted to be. I had no idea what my life would be like. What kind of future would I have as not a ballerina? When I saw the audition notice, I was drawn to the photograph of a gorgeous dancer who looked like a ballerina in feathers and rhinestones. Then I spotted the 5'8" minimum height requirement. That offered a glimmer of hope because it eliminated most of the serious competition. I began to feel cocky. With my 5'9" frame, I had an extra inch in my pocket. At the audition, a bird-like gentleman led me into a nearly empty studio where he introduced me to an elegant English lady. "I'd like you to meet Miss Bluebell," he chirped. "She'll be seeing you today." Miss Bluebell, aka Margaret Kelly, was dressed impeccably in a tweed skirt, silk blouse, and pearls. My nerves helped me stifle a giggle. The eccentricities of the Brits. What if Las Vegas dancers have frou-frou stage names? Miss Bluebell glanced at my resume. "My dear, I see you studied French in school. One day I'll take you to Paris." My heart raced. I hadn't done so much as a high kick for her. But then she asked me to improvise a dance combination. I panicked. Usually dancers are shown what steps to do. I took a deep breath and pulled out some lyrical moves, visibly shaking through a variation that I thought was fairly sexy, for ballet anyway. The Birdman glared at me as if I'd just twerked. Embarrassed, I stopped abruptly and said, "I'm not sure what you want to see." In an irritated tone, he said, "Just do a grand battement then." I wanted to grand battement him in the face, but I just kicked as high as I could over his head. Then the heavens opened up. I danced well enough to be hired as one of 21 Bluebell girls for a new edition of the Lido. I was deeply flattered, even though at the time I'd never heard of the Bluebell girls. Miss Bluebell had been recruiting tall beauties from all over the world since the Second World War. She was instrumental in providing talent for cabaret director Don Arden's nightclub shows on the continent and elsewhere. I later discovered that Bluebell had been Margaret Kelly's childhood nickname, inspired by her piercing blue eyes. I would become the latest among Miss Bluebell's finds. Miss Bluebell's confident tone and her words, "You're just the kind of girl I'm looking for," gently propelled me into what I hoped would be a glamorous future. I trusted her faith in me. I also trusted that this refined lady was not at all what I had most feared, a gangster moll trafficking babes for casino moguls. Maybe the death knell hadn't sounded on my dance career after all.
Nancy refuses to let go of the entertainment side of Las Vegas. I think you said you're still working as a character minister at a wedding chapel.
I am. I'm still donning the costumes. I'm still putting on G-strings and feathers.
Yeah, it's amazing. Okay. Trying to figure out what sparked these essays. Nanette Hilton. I think I saw you wandering around the UNLV campus, and were we talking about the season or something? I don't know what happened, but I just discovered that you had a secret life as a fashioner of nutcrackers, and I thought that is too cool. And I could see somehow these nutcrackers, as you described them, in my mind's eye, and I thought we need to get this down on paper. And I think that's how it came to be. But what you provided me was very not just beautifully written, but also deeply educational. I wanted to get out there and start, being crafty and learning how to sell things on the internet. Do you mind reading a bit of Nutcracker Nation?
Well, thanks, Jarret. I'm not sure how this was conceived. We've known each other a while, bumping into each other on campus, going to and from classes. So somehow in there you figured out I had this alter ego, weird past
Secret
life.
life.
Yeah. And so I'm honored to be included in this. Thank you very much. First, can I get some sugar from my CSN students out there? And UNLV students? All right. So I used to be at UNLV, now I'm at CSN. I love them both, heart on both campuses. I'm going to share with you the introduction to just give some context to my Nutcracker Nation essay here. Jarret's invitation sat on my to-do list for a long time, and I really had to glue myself to my seat to make this prose piece come to pass. And I have to say it's probably one of my favorites of my about 3-decade career as a writer. And it spans about that much time too. So any student in here, just look at the timestamp in this essay and you'll see that I had to work hard to make sense of all of these dates. And I used that really great feather icon that Jarret came up with to indicate these time shifts. Nutcrackers used to frighten me. Those toothy, hinge-jawed imperial wooden men poised to crack your nuts or fingers. Mother prized them, collected them, and displayed them at more than Christmas. While I loved their bright and bejeweled costumes, I dreaded their menacing gaze. So one day, I found myself some wooden nutcracker blanks and, in my Las Vegas art studio, challenged this 19th century nutcracker stereotype. I broke off their wooden swords and scepters, substituting carved hearts, ribbons, glitter, and feathers. My nutcrackers are benevolent, graced with contented smiles and twinkling eyes. Their working parts are secondary to the whimsical story each tells. My first set of hand-painted nutcrackers bespeak nursery rhymes. Mary, Mary, quite contrary, Nutcracker wears a raffia braid down her back and holds a basket of tulips and a pet pig. Her mate, farmer in the Dell Nutcracker, holds a rake, a peck of peppers, and is girdled with fruits and vegetables. They wear crowns like traditional German-made Steinbach nutcrackers, originally fashioned to mock powerful overlords. But from beneath these humble hats poke straw, and they look more like beehives on which blackbirds and honeybees light. Happy nutcrackers are my trademark. Humpty Dumpty is part of my first nutcracker contingent, a popular seller because he appeals to both nutcracker collectors and Humpty Dumpty collectors. These people do exist. My 1999 Humpty Dumpty sits on a wall built of real wood and covered with real rocks and moss. He wears a Santa suit, holds a duckless fur in one hand and a candy cane in the other. Proportions are completely off. The tree is half the size of the candy cane. I watched the Twin Towers fall with daughter 3 on my lap. I was getting the children ready for school when my husband phoned, urging me to turn on the news. I sat daughter 3 on my lap to brush her hair as I tried to understand the proportions of what we saw on the TV. What I remember most in that moment is the tactile sensation of running the brush and my fingers through her golden cotton candy hair, trying to tame it. Her weight balanced on my knees as I coaxed snarls out. The size of her body between me and a screen. I hugged her to myself as we watched the second plane hit. We live near Las Vegas International Airport. For entertainment, we sometimes buy tacos and eat them atop a small grassy hill across the street from the fenced-in runway. Watching plane after plane soar in over our heads, we jump, stretch, reach to touch the landing gear with our fingertips. The wind curls across and down the plane's wings, making mini tornadoes. A few seconds after the jet has gone by, these vortexes swirl into palm trees, dance with fronds, whistle, whoosh, and vibrate into our bones. If they touch down, they make dust devils in the desert. I've seen Air Force One on the tarmac. Repeatedly, my kids' high school hosted political celebrities. Its proximity to the airport and its 87% minority student body make it a prime target for public relations opportunities. During their high school visits, daughter 4 shook Secretary of State Hillary Clinton's hand and got us all front and center tickets to hear President Obama address the student body on the topic of illegal immigration. After 9/11, the planes were grounded. The silence was startling at my house, where we are accustomed to frequent airport noise pollution, which sometimes shakes the ground and walls of our home. While then McCarran Airport was the first commercial U.S. airport to open 2 days after the terrorist attacks, to shuttle stranded travelers back home, aviation activity was virtually silent for weeks. For a city dependent on tourism, terrorism struck a palpable blow to Las Vegas. I stood on the grassy hill and watched nothing fly over my head, saw nothing land on the runway, and listened to no jet noise. I thought, freedom is the sound of airplanes. The Ukrainian Antonov AN-225, named Mariah in Ukrainian, meaning dream, landed at our airport on April 30th, 2004, the world's largest transport airplane, one of a kind. It was built in the late 1980s to carry a Soviet space shuttle into space. Repurposed and redirected, it picked up a 160-ton electric power transformer from Istanbul, Turkey, and delivered it to Las Vegas, destined for Boulder City's El Dorado power plant. I did not see it land. although aviation enthusiasts were poised at the Sunset Road viewing area when its 32-wheel landing gear touched down. Since 1988, the huge cargo capacity enabled it to deliver aid at times of crisis. Mariah flew relief supplies to the Dominican Republic after the 2010 Haiti earthquake. At the COVID pandemic outbreak, Mariah delivered critical medical supplies worldwide. A year ago, on February 24th, 2022, Russian invaders destroyed Mariah as it sat in its Kiev hangar. Ukrainian Foreign Minister Kuleba on Twitter said that while Mariah was destroyed, the Ukrainian dream of a strong, free, and democratic European state shall prevail.
And, Nanette Hilton teaches literature and composition at College of Southern Nevada. So, and you have a website, don't you, NanetteHilton.com?
Yeah.
Yeah, great. All right, so how did this next essay come to me? I think Delight Jayaka, she found me somewhere and said, you edit this series? And I said, yes. And she goes, well, I'm going to write an essay for this series. And I said, yes, I know you are. She's nodding. That's how it went down. It's such a beautiful, poetic piece of writing about the desert, how it inspires us as artists. It's just, everything about it is wonderful. She's just going to read a few pages from it. It's called Biker Gangs, Vegas Rocks, Sand Dunes.
Hello. Yes, so I asked Jarret, if I could write something, and I'm really glad I did. This is called, trying to find the perfect position, okay. This is called Biker Gangs, Vegas Rocks, Sand Dunes. A 30-minute drive in any direction from the Las Vegas Strip will transport you into the depths of nature. The contrast of cityscape and hotel casinos with mountains and dunes is what makes Southern Nevada unique and bustling with inspiration. Creatives embark on quests to seek inspiration, that exotic elixir of genius that is bestowed on the truly favored ones. Las Vegas offers plenty of inspiration for the audiovisual and literary arts. Our city is filled with stories of the absurd, horrendous, and the mundane. I came to Las Vegas looking for this inspiration. Legend has it that this elixir artists seek is laced along the ridges of the Southern Nevada, Sierra Nevada. Although the desert felt restorative, I couldn't create visual art until months after moving here. The picturesque juxtaposition of casinos and mountains was tantalizing, but my insides were numb. The anxieties of starting afresh in a new city and the burnt out from commercial photography assignments scrubs the joy of creating from my heart. So then it goes into a lot of details about how I first became a photographer and just what led me into that. I'm kind of trying to decide if I want to read all of that trauma, but okay, I'll leave that for you guys to read on your own, just head to the end of it. Okay. Okay, let me start here. Okay. 7 months after I settled into my apartment, Alex picked me up and we drove outside the city to Red Rock Canyon. He was becoming a big shot writer and wanted to get befitting headshots. I hadn't been to Red Rock before, but I trusted his instincts for great scenery. The swift shift of the landscape as we left the city was startling. There was flat land with bush patches for miles, and it quickly gave way to the rocks. As a photographer, I can confidently say that pictures don't do this place justice. Humans are so easy to capture with a camera, we're so small and finite. But the vastness of that landscape reminded me of God's infinity. We parked the car at the foot of a massive rock, and like the little city girl that I am, I realized that the mountains were cooler and I left my jacket at home. We hiked difficult trails and I photographed Alex, intent on capturing the texture of the rocks and the vibrance of Alex's personality with my camera. We were going for the image of a grunge writer on the verge of discovery. After a successful session, we ran home once we heard coyotes howling at the moon. Call me a coward, but you will not catch me sticking around after dark in a coyote's backyard. Las Vegas taught me to lean into spontaneity as a creative. One day, a friend and photography enthusiast asked me to grab my camera, and we headed into the Valley of Fire State Park, an hour outside the city, to hear the mountains and valleys. I consider myself adventurous, but hiking a 100-foot boulder right at the edge of the major highway inside the state park road was one of the most daredevil things I have ever done. I was crawling up the rock, careful to protect my camera lens. It's really not that bad, my friend said. I got my mom to do it last week. Her mom is definitely cooler than I am, and I don't feel inclined to challenge that. We played around for hours, taking photos of each other until we could no longer move. That trip reminded me of what I missed the most about photography, playing around. Las Vegas did not cure my listlessness with editing, but the small adventures made me excited to create again. It was the middle of final exams, and a couple friends and I went to the Amagosa Valley to take sultry desert photos. We packed every flowy dress in our combined wardrobes, some snacks, plenty of water, backup cameras and batteries, and drove out of the city. Our Jeep, Betty, was handling the off-roads like the well-traveled queen that she is. I have seen dunes in Dubai and Saudi Arabia on Instagram, but nothing compares to experiencing the dunes in person. I hiked a couple of mountains and rock, but hiking up a sand dune is so much work. With each step, you feel your feet sink several inches into the sand. Our model changed into a red ethereal dress that contrasted sharply with the desert mirage, crowning her the queen of the dunes. Because we left the city so late, we had only about an hour to get all the shots we needed. We chased the sun and light, took photos, and did quick changes in the desert till there was sand in every imaginable part of our bodies, and the sun had disappeared behind the full moon. After the shoot, everyone suffered visible hunger pangs, and we drove Betsy deeper into the desert to find nourishment. We jammed to Taylor Swift and looked around anxiously for cell service until we reached the closest town, Beatty, Nevada. I know there's controversy about how this word is said. Is it Beatty? I'm not gonna do that. Arriving in the small western town is everything you've seen in the movies and more. I was freezing once again. We exited Betty the Jeep, because I was freezing once again because I packed for the Las Vegas heat and not its night chills. Ray, who offered to drive us, was dressed in typical cowboy fashion with big sturdy belts, jeans, and the kind of boots I call horsepower shoes. I played the movie soundtrack from The Harder They Fall in my head and couldn't help giggling. Wild donkeys were rumored to be in the area, so we hunkered together and walked into a dingy casino that was supposed to hold the Wendy's. We entered the casino. There was a biker gang staring us down, an old woman drooling at Ray while she absent-mindedly played poker, an imaginary sign that said no colors allowed except it was for a rival biker gang. We ate greasy burgers and pancake syrup served by an overly friendly waitress. In the Wendy's booth, I had a realization. Inspiration is not an untouchable elixir for a select few. It is an experience to be sought and created. Las Vegas brims with inspiration. Las Vegas brims with inspiration. Find it, create it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Delight. Thank you for cornering me and asking me. So, Tiffany Pereira, how did this happen? Oh, right. She is a scientific illustrator, I believe, for Desert Research Institute. And I met Tiffany in Reno at some kind of, was it a bar crawl? What was it? It was a literary crawl, not a bar crawl. Sorry. Oh, well, it wasn't a bar. It was a literary crawl with bars. Yes, it's coming together now. And I said, hey, have you ever drawn a fantasy map? And she said, no, but I'd love to. And so I got her to draw the fantasy map that at the start of my just published dystopian YA adventure novel, Hammer of the Dogs. She drew a post-apocalyptic Las Vegas map. And thank you so much for doing that.
Oh, you are welcome. I didn't think I would ever have to illustrate dystopian punk flamingos, but
Yes.
there we go.
Yeah, that's what I like.
Zombie punker flamingos, but now I can say I've done it.
And I wasn't done there. I was like, once that project was in the can, then I was like, hey, I edited this anthology series. Do you mind doing a comic book? And I think you said you hadn't really done one before. No. And this thing is very sophisticated. It's called Field Day, and she's not able to read from it because I think it's actually in some ways a kind of a silent comic. There's not dialogue, but there's sound effects and beeping and desert wind and all kinds of other stuff. Maybe there might be a one narrative caption or two. Do you want to talk about the challenge of creating Field Day, which documents a day in the life of your field work that got a little, let's just say, adventurous?
Absolutely. So it's an honor to be here and to be included with all these amazing, wonderful people. So I'll begin with 3 words: stark, subtle, and sublime. Those are the words that I use to describe the Mojave Desert, the landscape that we live in. And amidst the glitz and the glamour of the Las Vegas Strip exists a vast ecosystem that favors those that take the time to get to know it, that take the time to delve a little deeper, look a little closer, maybe get on your belly to view the little wildflowers coming up that are just a couple inches tall. And as a desert ecologist and a scientific illustrator, it is my job to document the flora and fauna of this amazing system that we live in, and to conduct research that helps preserve and conserve this area that we live in. And in order to do that, we call these field days, where we journey out into the vast landscape. There's nothing more cathartic and beautiful than standing in an area where you know you're the only person for miles around, and you get to see the different interactions of the flora and the fauna and the plants and the animals. And on those field days, we have the good, the bad, and the ugly. And in this piece, I got to describe all of that. So we have a field day where I'm out tracking desert tortoises, have a radio transmitter and antenna, and I'm out looking for these tortoises for conservation research. And you get to see them in their burrows, you get to see them interacting with each other. Sometimes it's not safe for work, and you're like, oh gosh, gotta shield my eyes for a second. And you get to see these interactions that people think the desert is a barren landscape, but it is not. And so we get out there, we look for these tortoises, and that's the good. The bad, we have to deal with weather. I've had to deal with rattlesnakes. I've had to deal with random snow through the pass that we didn't know was coming. We had to deal with the tortoise has moved 10 miles in the opposite direction in a week. Who knew tortoises can move that fast? But they do. And then occasionally we have to deal with the ugly. And the ugly sometimes is other people. And I'm kind of teasing you a little bit. You're going to have to get the book to get the full story. But there's been a time where I have been conducting my field work, and then I hear the whizzing, and I take a moment, and I stop, and I hear the cutting of the air of bullets. And I drop to the ground, and I army crawl back to the truck, and I call my supervisor, I call the rangers, and then I come across this person set up on a dirt road, shooting out into the open desert. And, we deal with it, we move on for the benefit of the species and the work that we do, and I'm right back at it the next day.
Thank you. And then Las Vegas has a comic scene, and the reason we have a comic scene is because of the person sitting at the end of that table over there, Gene Munson. Just a, I don't know what else this is going to, I can't, my words are failing me. Force of nature in Las Vegas comics. She does it all.
Thank you. Before I start with my piece, even though you're not able to see on screen, which is more incentive to get the book, everyone. Not just for me, but all the spoilers everyone is leaving. My first question is, make some noise if you've eaten at Blueberry Hill? That should have been louder, so they're behind here. They're 24 hours, get over there. My second question is, who believes in breakfast all day? Yeah, there's my good girl. I bring up those two questions because they're how Plot Twist Publishing started. When you break bread over breakfast, the most universal meal of the day, you can get anyone to do anything and feel motivated. I know I eat breakfast before I hit the DMV, where I'm a likable person. So even though you're not able to see that visually, I like to think, and my husband in the crowd thinks, I am an animated ham, so I will kind of paint the picture for you, and then you can see the full picture outside over this. So this all starts in 2016. I have breakfast for dinner with 5 men, and as a woman who is one of the few women at that time in 2016 breaking into comics, and as a woman of color, this was a bold move on my part because we're meeting at Blueberry Hill because I have no office, no money, and no expertise in comics. But for anyone who is interested in anything in life, if you have the will, there is a way. So one of my male creator colleague friends says, why is making comics important to you? And what would life be like without X-Men for me? What would life be like without Archie comics for me? What would life be like without Peanuts for me? And what would life be like without Sailor Moon? Oh, we stand hands. So that's why I love comics. But this is what keeps me engaged in creating comics. I am interested in titles that aren't marketed widely in the comic store. I'm interested in people's ideas, their rough sketches, and how they reach these wild places in their imaginations. I enjoy printing short stories that bring different members of our community together as they learn to tell sequential stories for the first time. What does it mean to love all of those things in an industry that didn't really offer these kinds of opportunities to someone from Guam, to someone from Nevada? Am I gonna wait forever for validation when it comes to making, loving, celebrating, and sharing comics? In 2016, we would work together with new and seasoned comics creators all over the valley making and printing comics. Together, we would build new bodies of work in a city we love and believe in. Building is easy when you love what you do. Thank you.
Thank you, Gene Munson. Okay, Sean Clark, how did this happen? Oh, we had a mutual, well, you knew him better than I did. Gary Nelson. Sean Clark wrote a very moving tribute to a film director here in town that I deeply admire. I'm completely obsessed with his film that Disney made. What was it called? The Black Hole. I watch it over and over again. I've made my poor son, I think they're here tonight, my sons watch The Black Hole maybe 15 times. I can't get enough. I think he did Freaky Friday. He did a bunch of stuff, but I knew of Sean because he had written my favorite episodes of TV shows like Coach, Northern Exposure, I had to get Sean involved. Sean, you just came off a theatrical production, a play that you wrote and produced.
I'm sorry?
You just came off a theatrical production.
We just had a very successful run at the Winchester Cultural Center of Dog Explosion.
Woohoo!
That's,
I saw it. It's wonderful.
well, thank you. Make you laugh, make you cry.
Yes.
It's about Gary. There's a lot more interesting stuff, but to set it up, I just will start at the start. Very good place to start. My friend Gary Nelson passed away in May of 2022. He lived in Las Vegas for nearly 20 years, yet very few people in town knew he was one of the most prolific screen directors in history. He'd worked continuously in film and television for more than 50 years and was a born storyteller. His best stories, could easily be argued, weren't the ones he directed, but about life behind the camera on sets and locations around the world. We first met on the set of the television series Early Edition, where I was a writer-producer, and Gary was the resident director and producer. To him, I was just another young face with a producer title I probably didn't earn. There were, however, several challenges linked to leadership changes and production issues, and Gary and I began to bond over our quick problem-solving strategies. Gary had multiple sclerosis, a diagnosis he kept secret to avoid complications with production insurance and to avoid any stigma that might keep him from working. He even kept it from his sons for years until it was too evident to conceal. Discomfort and mobility issues finally forced him to retire. I had left Early Edition the year before and taken a job in academia, teaching at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas. Gary called me and got me talking in detail about what life was like in Southern Nevada. Gary and his wife Judy were looking for their retirement home, and he liked to tell me later that I was a major factor in choosing Vegas, but I suspect the main reason was that back then you could still pretty much smoke anywhere in town. He became a mainstay in my classes. We would screen features and television episodes he directed, and we'd sit in front of the students afterward and encourage questions and conversation about what we'd screened and anything else they wanted to cover. Many were surprised to learn at some point or another they'd all seen something from Have Gun Will Travel to Get Smart to Gilligan's Island to Police Story to Kojak, the original Freaky Friday, and the big budget The Black Hole that Gary had directed. One semester I taught a production class in which we made a short comic movie. Gary agreed to come and be on set to answer any questions and give guidance if he could. We had an early call time one morning, something college students had issues with. But knowing Gary would be present, everyone was remarkably on time. And as we moved into our day, there was a moment when the camera was being positioned and lights were being set. I looked over and I saw Gary, coffee in hand, pointing out a camera move to the student director. I realized in that moment that he was completely in his natural habitat, on a set, making good things happen. Instead of locations around the world, though, he was right here on campus, helping a new generation of students discover professional filmmaking.
Thank you, Sean. It's just a moving tribute to a wonderful director, a great person. I met him a few times. I was there for his introduction to the Hall of Fame. Yes. Wow, it's wonderful to see all my cultural obsessions appearing here. Next up is Beauty and the Beast. The TV show, I mean, with Linda Hamilton, who was in Terminator. I think, Sarah, I don't remember how we started talking about Beauty and the Beast, but I'm so glad we did. And we might have been talking about Henderson first. Growing up, you told me you'd grown up in Henderson.
Yeah.
You're a native.
Yeah.
And you shared some heartfelt memories of watching that TV show.
Yeah, thanks, Jarret. I'm really appreciative to have this opportunity with all of you. These stories are fabulous. This is a story from my childhood in Henderson, off Windmill and Pecos. And it does involve Beauty and the Beast, but I think it's just about a lot more than that. So, I was 11 years old with knobby knees and terrible bangs, and I had just moved out of the neighborhood where my best friend lived. Between us was the Pittman Wash, where my cat used to catch critters and bring them to our back porch as gifts. My mom would approach the back door in the morning with her hot tea in hand, open the sliding glass, and let out the most recognizable screech I will ever know in my life. Then, yelling at the top of her lungs, she would say, "Mike, come here now! Smokey brought another thing." And a darting rodent would flash through the living room past my sisters and me, running for its life after playing dead on the porch mat. It would invariably find a home in my parents' closet for a week. One time, after my mom kept hearing sounds coming from her dresser drawer, she made my dad look around. There he was, pushing the clothes around and pulling out drawers when out jumped a chipmunk. It darted to the bathroom and jumped into the toilet. I'll never forget that drowning chipmunk. The Pittman Wash provided great backyard entertainment. To deal with the distance between my best friend and me, my parents granted me the fresh independence of riding my bike alone to her house at least once a week after school. Henderson was still a small town and about to become the fastest growing city in the country. It was the height of limitless expansion and elementary school overcrowding. In our new neighborhood, every house had exactly one tree planted out front, held up by 2 wooden posts and bright green gardening tape wrapped tightly around the trunk of each paltry sapling. Lake Mead would magically remain full for decades to come, so all yards came equipped with a water-guzzling, lush green lawn. In neighborhoods across the valley, a loud truck would arrive on the streets, stopping in front of each lawn, and a goopy substance would be sprayed onto the rocky soil, layering the dirt in synthetic green sludge a few inches thick. Hydro-seeding, a cost-effective and time-saving method for creating lawns in places they didn't belong. A spray-and-go solution. Our new home was perfect for my 2 sisters and me, and my mom and dad built their lives around us, and my taste for stellar movies began there. I'm going to skip ahead a little. I want to tell you about a really bad film that my parents let me acquire on repeat. As memories go, all that I have are snippets. And when I bring up this film to people, they usually have no idea what I'm talking about. And so it's actually the TV show, but put into a film. It's like the first 4 episodes of Beauty and the Beast from 1987. A take on a classic story that will forever change your viewing experience of the Disney version that came out a few years later in 1991. The IMDb trailer of this 1987 show tells it like this: the adventures and romance of a sensitive and cultured lion man and a crusading assistant district attorney in Manhattan. The fantasy that millions have longed for has finally come true. And for $14.98 each, there are 4 ways to relive the magic that captivated audiences everywhere. And relive the magic I did. So I talk about the movie a little bit, and it goes on for a while, but I want to get to, I'll just give you a little paragraph towards the end. And now, in my somewhat mature understanding of memories, I know that it is not really the movie itself that is my memory. As memories go, it is all the mundane parts of the time and place that wrap themselves around those moments to create expansive spaces of childhood nostalgia. It's the drive to the movie store, the smell of the place, and the splendid, surprising feeling when my dad said, "Sure, one more time," to this rental. It's the music was on the radio, the lights over the stove when we got home, the candle on the counter, and the popcorn my mom was cooking. But it was also the movie, and it was definitely the idea of a secret passageway that made this movie stick in my mind for so long. I really want there to be a secret passageway back to my world of Hollywood video and my parents' old Astro van. I want there to be a horizon of dirt and wind still on the other side of Eastern Avenue. And I want to find a film I just can't stop watching again. I wish I could take my kids with me in this secret passageway in an Astro van, of course, and arrive at Hollywood on Friday nights. I wish I could take all the lessons this memory of the mundane 11th year of my life taught me and get to recreate it in the here and now. Thank you. I skipped all the beefs for...
Those are my favorite parts.
I'm sorry.
Sarah Calvo, thank you so much. It's really a beautiful piece, beautiful reminiscence of Las Vegas suburbia. It's beautiful. Okay, Vera Petrochenko, we go way back. I think you were my student 10 years ago, 12 years ago at College of Southern Nevada. Am I making this up? Was it at a bar crawl? Where was it?
Yeah, it was such a long time ago, I don't remember. Yes, but I was your student, and now I have my students. Thank you, Jarret, really. It was also thanks to you that I became a writer, and I was forced to write this piece because
I think I've been trying to publish you for years, and I finally had to like put my foot down and ask him.
Yeah, and because I was trying to not go back to my past, my dancing past. I just wanted to be taken seriously because one thing about being a showgirl, you're not taken seriously, and you're judged by your looks. So that's why it was hard for me to write this piece, but I'm glad I did, and now I'm thinking of a book. So thank you, Jarret. And of course, thank you Nevada Humanities for making it happen as well. Now I'm published. Should I read? So I just a little bit to have this transition smoothly. I just give you a little bit of context. The piece called First Edition, but there is a moment of the first edition when you start reflecting on what you are and about the world you're about to experience as a woman, especially trying to audition for dancing, as a dancer, which is, again, you've been judged by so many ways. So I'm 21 at the time, and I'm thinking about my experience to be a young woman. How would I dare to dream of Parisian cabaret if I can't even make it as a model? I used to model in Paris. I was a provincial girl from Belarus, the country that even Europeans can't find on the map of Europe. And like every other girl of my age from the former Soviet Republic, I was a foreigner of suspicious Eastern European origin. Soviet was synonymous with Russian. Russian girls are well-known illegals who always end up on the street engaging in prostitution or sex trafficking. A French man named Patrick, who declined my visa application at the French embassy 2 years earlier, told this to Stefan. Stefan is my boyfriend. When he called Patrick to ask about the reason for my visa rejection. Patrick warned Stefan to not get involved with that Russian girl, meaning me, because of my history of prostitution somewhere in the Middle East, as he claimed. Stefan told Patrick that he had a small dick, the reason why he couldn't get a woman. It's getting more interesting. I met both Stefan and Patrick in a nightclub in Minsk, a capital of Belarus, where Stefan came to open the first French hair salon. And he asked me to be his hair model. We fell in love. Patrick knew that, but he still tried to hit on me when Stefan returned to Paris. I never found out if Patrick indeed had a small dick. Thanks God. I learned from Stefan about their phone conversation when I finally arrived in Paris 7 months later. But I didn't like Patrick telling me about the virgin daughter's offers that he received from their fathers, Belarusian government officials, as a way to persuade me to have sex with him. I was neither sure whether what Patrick said about virgin daughters was true, because I also didn't like him, and I would never trust a man like him. Poor Patrick. I wonder what happened to him now. He's probably still in Belarus, married to one of his virgins as he was offered, driving a Mercedes, which he couldn't afford back in France. I pity him for his limited views of women. I met other Patricks in my life. Patrick is a breed of male mentality spread across various cultures without regard to nationality, race, or religion. They are found everywhere like weeds, but mainly in bars and clubs. In Las Vegas, they like to spend weekends eyeing girls in short dresses, offering them free drinks in hopes that their expenses will be repaid later in their hotel rooms. If luck isn't on their side and their credit cards are not maxed out yet, they book a table at a nightclub with a bottle of strong liquor, inviting girls on the dance floor to their table with the same expectation of a happy ending. Those are the men who yell "fucking bitch" behind a woman's back, who may accept an offered drink with a smile and then decide to leave the party. If still unlucky but sober enough, their last resort is a strip club, where at least they can watch dancing naked girls while getting wasted. The next day, hungover, they catch a plane to return home to their certified virgin wives. To Patrick, free drinks equal free girls. Guys like Patrick see in female forms an object of their carnal desires, especially beautiful forms. That's why they fear a beautiful woman, suspecting she uses her physical beauty as the most valuable possession to charm and as the most powerful tool to profit from. In other words, they believe her power is seduction, so they want to control it. In their eyes, a woman's attractiveness and thus her self-awareness cannot be innocent and unsold from sexual desires. As a woman who becomes aware of the power of her appearance cannot leave it unused. Therefore, they're convinced she uses her physical appearance to manipulate them to buy her free drinks.
Jarret, thank you so much. Feels good. Great piece.
I'm sure there is no Patrick in this room.
Angela Brommel. I think I see you once a year. I think we talked about Miss Atomic Bomb at the book festival. Yes, and I had to get you to write about this obsession of yours, which is also fascinating to me. I think that's where the spark came from, the Las Vegas Book Festival.
My great-grandmother and her sister were both chorus girls at the Princess Theater. So I grew up in these stories, and then recently I learned that their younger brother, I don't even know what we call this job, but he was the person who went to the town before the circus to tell everyone the circus was coming. I'd never heard that. So I grew up hearing stories about the women in my family in the arts and finding things. And they always supported their family, and so, in that time period, maybe a husband would pass and they would remarry, and my grandmother was devoutly Catholic, and so this was really troubling for her, but I loved these stories, and I was just obsessed with asking my grandmother anything I could, and I'm always on Ancestry.com looking for more photos of them. President Harry S. Truman authorized a continental testing site at Nellis Air Force Gunnery and Bombing Range on December 18, 1950. The 680 square mile section of the range was initially known as the Nevada Proving Ground, and in 1955 it became the Nevada State Site. Today it is known as the Nevada National Security Site. The first test, the Rangers test, were performed in 1951. In the spring of 1952, the third test series, Operation Tumbler Snapper, aired on live TV so that Americans could view the blast from the comfort of their living rooms. Within a year of the first test, the Last Frontier Hotel crowned dancer Candace King as Miss Atomic Blast. On May 9, 1952, she became the first atomic pinup girl when the Evening Telegraph, Dixon, Illinois, and the Day Record, Statesville, North Carolina, published a photo of this atomic age beauty. In 1953, North Las Vegas named Miss North Las Vegas Paula Harris Miss A-Bomb. As Miss A-Bomb, Harris was part of the North Las Vegas Chamber of Commerce's Parade Float, based on the film The Atomic City. A sign on the side of the float claimed the city was as new and modern as the A-Bomb. When Operation Q failed multiple times in 1955, due to high winds, personnel began calling it Operation Miss Q. After some of them visited the Sands Hotel and Casino, they crowned Copa showgirl Linda Lawson as Miss Q. The Sands released a photo of the showgirl with a mushroom cloud crown. But the woman in the iconic 1957 photograph of Miss Atomic Bomb, snapped by Don English of the Las Vegas Sun, and featuring a beautiful blonde woman wearing a bathing suit with a mushroom cloud in the front, is still known as Miss Atomic. Lee Merlin, like Linda Lawson, was also a Copa girl. In the black and white photograph, her lithe arms reach upwards, fingers relaxed. She has a smile so big you can't imagine her ever being unhappy. Yet within the year, she vanished. I rarely gamble, and never with my own money. Less than a month before I moved to Las Vegas, I reluctantly put a $20 bill from my parents into a slot machine on an Iowa riverboat and got 3 cigars. That morning, a small check arrived in the mail from the Alt Weekly for a preview I wrote about a musical. Combined, it was exactly what I needed to pay for my part of the moving truck. Unfortunately, when the truck got to my house, it was almost completely full with my future roommate's belongings. I made the decision to pack most of what I needed in my red 1991 Cavalier, since I could always go back home if it didn't work out. One night, a few weeks earlier, I was writing after work at Cup of Kryptonite, a Des Moines comic book coffee shop. I paid a tarot reader to tell me where I should move. In previous fall, I graduated with an MA in theater, and I was teaching English at a community college in Waterloo, Iowa, while also working at a chiropractic clinic. Anytime I could, I was writing a Cup of Kryptonite. The tarot reader had a sign that said a reading was $20, but she could do a lesser reading for less. I only have $5, I told her. That's okay, what do you want to know? There are a few cities that I'm interested in. I offered New York, Seattle, San Francisco, LA, and Las Vegas. She spread her cards out on top of the 1950s diner table. Seattle, no good. Okay, well, I probably couldn't take the rain anyway. New York is very good for love. Fresh from a recent breakup, I said, I don't care about love. She looked at me for so long that I knew she didn't believe me, but she moved on. LA is fine, Las Vegas is very, very difficult. San Francisco is good for everything, romance, career, and money. Why is Las Vegas difficult? Las Vegas is difficult in every way, financially and spiritually, but there are opportunities for growth. Yes, she answered. Very little romance. Yes. Great. My chance to make everything new. My paternal great-grandmother, Ravenna, and her sister Marguerite were showgirls at the Princess Theater in Des Moines just before and after the 19th Amendment passed and women got the right to vote. As a little girl, I loved to ask my grandmother to tell me everything she could about whom her mother may have met while working there. Once I asked her if her mother had ever danced wearing only feathers. At that age, I didn't really know what that might mean, but I had caught a glimpse of a scene with Mae West and a feathery fan. No matter, my grandmother's look told me to never ask that again. During the war, Ravenna was a spot welder at Solar Aircraft Company when it opened in 1942. As many women of the Rosie the Riveter era did, she made good money doing work that was traditionally done by men, while so many of them were off to war.
and when they returned, she did some tutoring and taught arts and crafts at a local park. These stories about women surviving great difficulties, keeping their children fed while working in both the arts and sciences, prepared me to listen for these kinds of stories, to write poetry about Miss Atomic, future divorcees as 6-week residents at the Tule Springs Divorce Ranch, and the wartime women at Basic Magnesium Inc., known as Magnesium Maggies. The cultural branding focused on their beauty and unquestionable goodness, but their work helped build the region. For a brief time in the mid-'80s, when I was in elementary school, we lived in an old farmhouse across the road from the Byron Nuclear Generating Station in Ogle County, Illinois. My father and my uncles were fourth-generation union plumbers and steam fitters who were traveling to work as welders on the plant, and after driving back and forth to Iowa every weekend, it became easier to move everyone to Illinois. I don't know if we really had duck and cover drills to prepare for nuclear emergencies, or if they were tornado drills. Either way, I was filled with dread. I remember waiting each morning for the bus at the end of the gravel driveway. I stood under the beautiful trees that ran all the way to the left side of the road and up to a small orchard that separated our house from the neighbors. To the right, I watched the billows of white steam from the top of the vase-like reactors. Whenever we drove past them, I would try to count as many of the small rectangles on the sides as fast as I could. The reactors were beautiful in their own way, but I was always waiting for them to explode without notice. In 2012, the Las Vegas Chamber of Commerce recreated the photograph with author, actress, and television personality Holly Madison while declaring her the new Miss Atomic Bomb. It didn't stick. That same year, the Killers released their fourth studio album, Battleborn, which features the track Miss Atomic Bomb. Imagining her as the girl that breaks the good guy's heart, Brandon Flowers sings, Miss Atomic Bomb, making out, we've got the radio on, you're gonna miss me when I'm gone. Hanging to the right of my desk is a framed postcard of Miss Atomic from the Smithsonian-affiliated National Atomic Museum in Las Vegas. The museum was one of the first places I visited when I moved to town. I was interested in it for a lot of reasons. The black and white photograph is all desert sky with just a sliver of the desert as Miss Atomic's strappy heels. The camera gazes at her, one leg crossed in front of the other, arms up in joy as she flashes a pearly white smile. All of this with her tousled blonde hair makes her look like our version of the early photographs of Marilyn Monroe at the beach. That's part of the power of the image. She's ours. Outside of Hollywood, in the sparkling desert, there's a girl who makes everything beautiful just by entering the frame. Strangely affixed to her bathing suit of the same color, there's a fluffy cotton mushroom cloud that rests between her hip and explodes across the bust of her suit. The deeply unsettling thing about this photograph is how beautiful and sublime it is. This larger-than-life beauty is a weapon of mass destruction. The atomic bomb can only kill. But if you keep your eyes on the beautiful girl, you might forget this. Will we disappear with her when all the cameras leave town? Vaporized by a white flash in the desert heat? Will anyone miss us when we're gone?
Thank you, Angela Brown. Janessa Kenway, I think I met Janessa on a poetry bus, but that might, I think that's right. I think it,
yes, we did. I was covering the entry class event.
yes, that's what it was. That was many years ago. We were different people back then. Now we are who we are, and it's pretty exciting.
Different and still so much the same.
Yes. And I wanted you to write for this volume, and you pitched me this idea on an artist.
Yes. So he asked me to write something for this collection. I was in the middle of completing my dissertation, and I was like, no way. But then I remembered Anne Brinkman, a photographer that I've kind of been obsessed with for a long time. I ran into her photography when I was an undergraduate in San Francisco, and then rediscovered her during my graduate studies, and immediately decided to do something with that and put it together. I've always had kind of an obsession with artists who are also writers, because that's what I am. So I'll just read a little bit. It's kind of long, so I won't read all of it. Sapphic Visions. Each morning, there is an unavoidable moment of self-reflection as I stand naked in front of the bathroom mirror, brushing teeth or hair, considering the woman who is both me and not me. My eyes are often critical, lingering over the never flat enough tummy, a judgmental glance at my behind. I didn't know I was going to read this in front of so many people.
Oh yeah, sorry about that.
She passes inspection. Sometimes I even find her sexy. If I'm not paying attention, a meditative, appreciative, non-sexual wandering occurs, tracing collarbones, the lines of curves, grooves, sinking into hollows in a way that seems akin to the eye that roams freely upon the figures of sculptures or photographs, contemplative, appreciative, non-sexual. This self-appraisal, a woman looking at herself, evokes a feminine admiration of the female form and falls inexorably with the umbrella of safism. Sapphic Vision is a different way of looking than most of us find ourselves looking at women's bodies. When I first moved to Las Vegas, I remember being shocked at the outfits worn by female casino employees that were revealing and ludicrously outdated ensembles cast back from the 1940s. Las Vegas does not by any means have a monopoly on exploiting the sexualization of women's bodies, but the city is notorious for massive strip clubs, nights of no-holds-barred partying, and scantily clad cocktail waitresses everywhere, giving it a particularly strong claim upon that industry. To what degree women freely choose or are conscripted into these fields, I cannot say. What I will say, however, is that it is possible to visually appreciate the female body in a sensual but non-sexual way. I first encountered this mode of vision in the work of the poet and photographer Anne Brigman, who shot much of her best work high up in the Sierra Nevada mountains. In the early 20th century, Anne Brigman was a photographer and part of the photo-secessionist movement. She is renowned for her images of the female form, many of which have mystical or symbolic overtones and are shot in natural settings. The feminine body and themes of sensuality are frequently explored throughout Brigman's work, especially in relation to the natural world. The female figure is portrayed in many of her images as being powerful, self-assured, and rooted in the natural environment. Brigman's art honors the female experience and draws attention to the strength and beauty of the female body. A few years back, I had the pleasure of visiting a Brigman retrospective at the Nevada Museum of Art located in Reno. The heart of the exhibit displayed the crown jewels of Brigman's work, a stunning array of her iconic images of nude women in nature photographed during her many trips to the Sierra Nevada. The Hamadryad portrays a woman in languid repose reclined among the expansive, gnarled limbs of a pine tree. In the limpid pool, a kneeling woman sips alpine water through cupped hands. Dryads displays the inclined conversation of two women along a granite ridgeline. The language of Brigman's poetry and the titles of her images give away her classical Greek and neo-pagan sensibilities that gesture backwards in time to the pre-Christian era of the poetess Sappho. The term sapphic is commonly used as a byword for same-sex female desire. Sapphic behavior has historically been synonymous with lesbian behavior and viewed as unnatural or even as a form of mental illness, and thus sapphic and lesbian tendencies are often hidden from society, as the alternative of public display often results in outcast. The term sapphic has become inextricably caught up in sexual behavior, leaving little room for non-sexualized notions of appreciation of the female form. This discourages women from appreciating their own bodies or those of other women out of concern for being perceived as sapphic. Like me, we all look, but mostly we don't talk about it. We certainly struggle to love our bodies and thus miss out on sapphic appreciation. Simone de Beauvoir famously said, "One is not born but becomes a woman," which makes me think about trying to look at myself as not a woman, but the form that I am before a woman, to see what is there before the veil of gender is cast, a veil that seems to bring on deficiencies and insecurities. Let's see, should I skip ahead a little? As I wandered Brigman exhibit, I was struck by the possibility that her photography recovers the lost meaning of Safiq. In the OED, there's a small dangling fragment that suggests that at least in some ancient context, at one point in time in France, the word Safiq, a French variation of Sapphic, found a way to mean appreciation of the female form in a way that wasn't sexual. Her photography recovers that lost meaning, that perhaps her images find a way to perceive woman as magnificent, a woman in her magnificent form. Brigman began taking photos at the mature age of 32. A portable camera using film was invented in 1888, and Brigman was one of the first women to use that camera artistically, as she opted to turn the lens upon herself and her female friends and her sisters. Exhibit Wild Text informs me that scholars speculate that Brigman was the first woman in America to photograph her own nude body. A woman photographing herself naked requires more than a passing degree of self-confidence. I imagine Brigman seeing her naked self on film for the first time, eyes thoughtfully scanning the wet negative in the warm red light of the dark room, lighting the boudoir of her first self-sapphic encounter. Formally confined to the mirror, her body is extracted, arrested, recorded, a perpetual still reflection of an externalized self. Neither she nor her subjects were professional models, but as Brigman describes them, slim, hardy, unaffected women of early maturity living a hardy, out-of-door life in high boots and jeans toughened to wind and sun. They were ordinary middle-aged women of average physique that explode with sapphic beauty in Brigman's images. These women tell Brigman that in the very act of posing, they have experienced an exaltation of mind and soul, suggesting through the experiences of being photographed, they uncover ecstatic feelings of sapphic beauty hidden inside them. Photographing the naked body in the wilderness has a transformative effect upon the group of women, inspiring spiritual and mental freedom. The appreciative gaze of Sappho surfaces in Brigman's work, identifying classical lines of beauty present within the bodies of ordinary adult women. Should I read any more, or is that enough? Oh, okay. I'll cut it off there.
That's Janessa Kenway. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you
Rap
for
songs
reading
with Megan.
Oh, yeah.
Brigman's book.
Oh, I should mention that images from all the things we're discussing do appear throughout the book. So, and I want to take this moment to thank Tanya Maynard at Huntington Press for designing such a gorgeous collection of works. Thank you so much. And then lastly, we have my dealer, Shwa.
Thank you. You still owe me, by the way.
He runs Avant Pop Bookstore in Commercial Center. So if you ever need any first edition books, Edgar Rice Burroughs, Carson and Venus, or probably a photo collection of Anne Brigman. He's got everything there, and I deeply appreciate you contributing an essay to this book.
Thank you. It's an honor. I feel like a gutter punk in a room full of rock and roll Hall of Famers. So it's an honor to be a part of this. So I grew up across the border in a little military town that was much like Las Vegas, just smaller, more religious, more militant, and a lot dirtier with less money. So it's hard to find a safe space, and my story is about finding those safe spaces throughout my life, all the way up until Vegas. So I'll start in the beginning and then kind of take you to when I end up here. This is called When the Freaks Unite. You know that relaxed and exhilarating feeling you get when you discover that perfect social scene? A setting where you can feel comfortable being you, whether it's out in some desolated desert, circling a bonfire while basking under the stars, or at someone's house where the party never stops and the cops seldom break it up. Maybe it's in the quiet of a museum or an art gallery, or the dark corner of a dive bar where the decor represents your creative spirit, where the throng of human animals share your absurd view of life. A destination brimming with unusual oddballs that gives you space to be yourself. A place where you fit in instead of stand out. You can just be you. That sensation you get when you feel at home. For those of us who have felt that like an outsider, an outcast, a degenerate, unable to fit in with most everyone and every place in society, considered a miscreant, an abomination by many. Those of us who prefer to disappear into our physical and mental solitary space rather than venturing out into the world. We need a space, a special place with spectacular decor surrounded by free thinkers and inspirational individuals who accept and recognize us for who we are and who we achieve to be. As the only son of a stressed out and exhausted single mother working 2 to 3 jobs and the elder sibling to a 5-year-old sister, 5-year-old younger sister, I spent most of my childhood caring for the house and babysitting, seldom leaving home without both my mother and sister. My only comfort was the distraction of television or hiding away in my room, creating imaginary conversations and future scenarios of the life I intended to live. The 3 of us moved numerous times, changing schools with each location. In high school, we settled in a newly constructed house that my mother and her second husband bought. It was then that I found a group of friends who allowed me to feel comfortable in my skin. Some friends from the previous schools and some new friends that they had met on their scholastic journey. A motley crew of mixed-race teenagers. Teens determined to express themselves in every way possible, brought together by our mutual love of music and a passion for absorbing the bizarre side of life. Growing up in a small, high-desert town, there are a few locations for teenagers to congregate. The quickest and most accessible was the deserted landscape just past the edge of town, where the asphalt terrain breaks off into dirt roads that lead out into ancient creosote bushes. The habitat of giant black ants, zebra-tailed lizards, and desert iguanas, where the only natural thread is backing into a cholla cactus. A place where the remains of long-forgotten, dilapidated houses absorb the sun into their splintering skin, teetering above sparkling shards of broken bottles, green, amber, white, where the ghosts of lost prospectors howl in the wind, traveling with the whirling dervishes, occasionally showing their faces along rock formations and dusty riverbeds. A place where mind-melting sunsets, painted into tropical colors of a paradise long lost, would reveal a sky so full of stars it was impossible not to believe in life on other planets. This was the first place that I found a solace in my teenage years. So I'll skip ahead now to Vegas. A decade later, I found myself in Las Vegas, having relocated with my wife for work. My daughter moved from Northern California to begin her adult life in the Pacific Northwest. My stepson, at the age of 22, became a victim of fentanyl-laced drugs. He passed, crossing over to the other side, a year after we crossed over the California-Nevada border and had last seen him. That next year, COVID arrived. When the COVID dust settled, my wife and I were presented with an opportunity to take our online bookstore to a brick-and-mortar space. We opened in June 2022 in the historic commercial center of East Sahara Ave, a few blocks from the Strip. The space is small for a bookstore, but we worked with what we have and used the space creatively. We have room for book signings, but not quite enough to hold poetry readings, so the hunt for a cafe or bar with more space began. When we first moved into the Avant-Pop bookstore location, there was a nearby coffee shop that we spoke with and had arranged to host events there. However, because of the lack of customers, the coffee shop closed down a few months after we arrived. A neighborhood bar had shown interest, but was too overwhelmed with their own events to follow through. That's when our neighbor a few doors down, Jessica Orrick, offered space in her Miniature Museum, Office of Collecting and Design, OCD. Within her museum, Jessica created a reading room, a small mood-lit forest green room curated with frames, collections of miniature spoons, bones, and other three-dimensional art, alongside framed photos and two-dimensional oils and mixed media works. Mostly tiny, but all massive in their ability to attract your curiosity and calm your frenzied soul. You can relax and read on one of the velvet or floral patterned antique wingback chairs. Or if you prefer, stretch out on the black leather sofa that sits below a rustic quilt, both framed by shelves of books. The OCD reading room transports you into a dimension of time that is both unusual and familiar, reminiscent of a dream or a long-forgotten place you once visited as a child. A chamber straight out of an Agatha Christie novel with the essence of Edward Gorey's mischievous lingerings in the shadows. It is an absolute charming destination and just about the most perfect place to host a poetry reading, aside from the unsuitable amount of seating. The OCD reading room can only accommodate 12 people, making our poetry readings, well, intimate to say the least. So again, we began the search for a larger space to showcase the talented poets of Las Vegas. The Core Contemporary Gallery, owned by artist Nancy Good, had moved from the back upper floor of the building to the front between Avant Pop Bookstore and OCD. Nancy's new space was bigger and better and exactly what we needed for a large poetry event. Nancy graciously allowed us to host, and we successfully pulled off the first Poetry Arcade, an event that combined poetry reading with a form of busking that allowed each poet to earn some money. We sat close to 50 people surrounded by legendary Las Vegas artist Anthony Bondi's collage work and interactive art pieces. The poet's backdrop, a chandelier of silver belts that cascaded and rippled during each performance, one of Bondi's Burning Man sculptures, a showcase piece of the installation. Across the room, an extension wall clustered with sun-kissed rubber lizards stretched from the ceiling to the floor. We were blessed with the ability to host the Poetry Arcade in Bondi's world. Without a doubt, Core Contemporary is a great location for poetry readings. Our only obstacle at this venue would be the timing and access, as exhibiting artists would have different needs for the space. One attendee at our intimate poetry reading at OCD was Natalie Berg, the booking agent at the local Red Dwarf Bar. Natalie loved our event and wanted to have something similar, but a little grittier. So we set up at the Red Dwarf to see what we could manifest. Red Dwarf is owned by Natalie's partner, Russell Gardner, who is the third owner of the bar in that location. The first owner was a husband and wife. The husband died after the second and successful murder attempt by the wife. After that gruesome affair, the haunted bar sat vacant until the next owner opened the Smuggle Inn, where it was turned into the most successful dive bar in Las Vegas to purchase cocaine. This chapter of the bar lasted around a decade before it was raided and shut down. Then Russ stepped in. Russ has been in the bar and beer industry all his adult life, and growing up in Las Vegas, he knew exactly what locals wanted and needed. It worked, it took work, but the dive bar was reincarnated into the Red Dwarf, with murder and cocaine being replaced with booze, music, and pizza. Walking to the Red Dwarf from the blazing Vegas sun is like crossing through a black hole. As your eyes adjust to the dark room, lit by a warm glow of colorful spears dangling in fishing nets strung from the ceiling, the bar begins to reveal itself as a sunken pirate ship, a haunted lounge at the bottom of the sea, where Calico Jack and his female pirates, Mary Reed and Annie Bonny, could be found drinking painkiller cocktails and listening to punk bands. Skeletons of unsuccessful grifters and racketeers hang from the corners, warning others to beware. A wall of flyers from past punk and alternative shows are plastered along the back of a small, unusual stage that the original sign from the Smuggler's Inn hangs kitty corner to the back stand. Tribal masks hang alongside vintage mirror, beers, signs, and classic black and white movies play on vintage TVs. A water hole found only in the Twilight Zone, the exact audience that I look for in a dive bar. The cherry on top, no gambling machines in sight distracting you from listening to the music, and no toxic cigarette smoke to turn the pleasure of eating your pizza into a revolting act of self-punishment. Once again, I have successfully found refuge in a paradise for fugitives escaping the monetary of normal life. Now, with the help of Natalie Rust and the crew at Red Dwarf, we have the ideal spot for an ongoing poetry event, Doomed to Poetry. Throughout my life, the spaces I'm drawn to have been the independent, small, but fabulous freak shows, the ones with DIY delivery and over-the-top shenanigans enjoyed by all participants. From refurbished barns, living rooms, and repurposed residential nightclubs to miniature museums, psychedelic art galleries, and bottom-of-the-sea tiki bars. My favorite spaces come with plenty of eye candy and illusions. The sense of being at the right place at the right time, feeling freakishly fantastic and as unimaginably possible. It is a space where I can fit in, yet naturally stand out. A place where I can escape and feel alive, be inspired, much like the desert itself, an immersive place where the freaks unite.
Thank you, Shwa. Thank you, all the contributors to Volume 14 of the Las Vegas Write series, sponsored by Nevada Humanities, published by Huntington Press. Thank you to Clark County Library for hosting this event. Thank you for all who showed up and supported these great Las Vegas writers. Like I said, Anthony's out there in the lobbies selling these books for an incredible discount, $10 a pop. And we've got all the authors gathered here on stage who would love to sign them for you so that you can resell these books on eBay. No, I'm just joking. We would love to sign these for you so you can put them on your coffee table and brag when people show up to your house and say, does Las Vegas have any culture? And then you just grab this book and you say, yes, we do. And these are the artists and comic book creators and filmmakers and poets and booksellers and dancers who make it all worthwhile and a wonderful place to live and be creative. So please go grab a book, come back here, and we'll sign it for you. Thank you all for coming. And as you can probably tell, we don't do a lot of gatekeeping, so if you have any great ideas for a story, an essay, a poem, a comic book, please let me know. I'll see you at the Las Vegas Book Festival as well. Thank you all for coming and being wonderful supporters of the arts.
Jarret, can I ask, don't you have a book release yourself?
Oh, yeah.
I have a book, and it's being released, and you can find me at the Las Vegas Book Festival on a panel at noon called something about writing genre fiction or something like that. It's going to be a great event, and I'll be selling my book there at the Barnes & Noble table and signing books. But thank you so much, everyone. Please come back to the table with the book. We'll sign it for you.